All right, so I want to make sure you can hear and see us. I want to make sure you also can link to the presentation. That too was there at the end on purpose because this is our second round, but one of the bit.ly, but want to make sure that you still can access it. So let us know if you have any issues. If you are having difficulty hearing us, make sure your computer is not on mute. And if you have any issues, just post it in the chat and we will do what we can to monitor that and follow up with you. As Lindsay noted, this webinar is being recorded, so you will be able to go back and reference it. My name is Julie Gerganis, and I am the Northeast Regional Consultant and a DLI Grant Co-Manager for the Digital Teaching and Learning Division. Thank you for joining us today. I will now turn it over to Lindsay, the other co-manager, so she can introduce herself.
Hey, I am Lindsay Sipe, and I am the Southwest Regional Consultant and the DLI Grant Co-Manager of the Digital Teaching and Learning Division. One of my current projects is helping to support and manage DLI grants, and we are excited about this ongoing opportunity for public school units during the 2020-2021 school year. Please note that we will often refer to PSU, which stands for Public School Units, throughout this presentation. This is an all-inclusive term that represents LEAs, all LEAs, including districts, charters, regional, and lab schools. Julie, before I move on to the next slide, I just want to confirm that you are able to see my screen.
I cannot.
Oh, let's see what is going on. My Microsoft Teams is acting a little silly this morning. I think it was that update. All right, let's try this again. All right, how's that? Is that better? Can we see now?
Yes, yes, awesome. Thank you.
All right, are we still able to see?
Yes.
Fantastic. I'm a little disappointed that you guys didn't get to see the Bitmojis of Julie and I. That is A-okay. All right, in March of 2020, hold on just a moment. Julie, can you make sure that this is recording? I know that I said I was going to do it, but now that
it does say
Microsoft...
recording, yeah.
Okay,
recording
perfect.
has started. It's showing that, so you're good.
Perfect. All right, great. Sorry, y'all. All right, in March of 2020, the State Board of Education approved the RFPs. This is the second round of grants for the 2020-2021 school year. And this webinar is intended to provide an overview for these interested in the planning grant opportunity. I anticipate that this webinar will last around 30 minutes. There will be several hyperlinks in this presentation. So you may choose to follow along on your own device if you would like, and if that serves you best. As Julie noted previously, there's a link to the presentation in the chat. We have also included the presentation link throughout the slide deck, and I'll be projecting my screen, hopefully, throughout today's webinar. If you have questions throughout the webinar today, please post them in the questions section of Microsoft Teams or in the chat section of Microsoft Teams, and we will answer them as many as we can as time allows at the end of the webinar. Or you can just hold them at the end and we can open up the discussion then. For any unanswered questions, Julie and I will post them in the Q&A section of the DLI doc, which can be found on the DLI website. If you have questions after the presentation or at a later time, we ask that you complete the Google form that's listed here on the title slide. And that way, everybody can see the answers. So Julie and I have found that many people will ask similar questions. So it is just a bit easier and more concise for everybody to get the same response. So we ask that you fill out that and submit that form if you have a question, and then questions will be answered and posted in the Q&A DLI doc as soon as possible. Usually Julie and I get to that within 24 hours or less. Julie, would you please post the link to the Google question form in the chat?
Yes.
Thank you
yes.
so much.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope that this webinar may answer many questions that you have in relation to the Digital Learning Initiative Planning Grant. We want to be sure to fairly provide consistent, accurate information to all the eligible participants, and we hope that these question and answer format will provide that opportunity. I'm going to pause for a few moments for you to be able to navigate to the presentation in a way that works best for you. And the other links posted to see so you can follow along with a bit more ease.
There were a couple that said they could not hear. You may have to leave the session and come back in, possibly. If somebody, can others hear us? If you would please respond in the chat to let us know if you can hear us.
Or just raise your hand even.
Okay, great. Great. Okay, awesome. Okay, we're going to go ahead and continue with the purpose of today's webinar. It's to help build awareness and an understanding of the DLI planning grants and to provide support for school districts and charter, lab, or regional schools who are interested in applying for this opportunity. Later today at 11 o'clock, we will have a similar webinar for those interested in the implementation grant. So feel free to join us for that one as well, if you would like. For those who aren't able to attend, or if you'd like to revisit the information, the recordings will be posted to the Q&A DLI doc located on the DLI grants website in the next few days. Today, we would like to provide you with an overview of the grant application, the timeline, the rubric for guidance, requirements, technical support, expected deliverables, key dates, and an opportunity for questions.
If you haven't already accessed the DTL website for the DLI grants, I believe you're going to find this website to be quite helpful to you as you navigate this process. You will find the link on the current slide, and Julie is going to post that in the chat in just a moment, but you can find that at bit.ly/DLI grants, and that is case sensitive. This website will provide you with some background information on the Digital Learning Initiative grants and a brief explanation of the types of grants that are available for public school units in the 2020-2021 school year. A link to the Microsoft Word version of the RFP and a PDF version of the RFP will also be posted on the site. This document is what applicants will use to access each of the appendices that will be included within this application. So also on this website, you will find a link to grants that have been recommended throughout the history of DLI grants and a lot of other really great information. So we encourage you to utilize the website as much as you possibly can.
Got to remember to unmute. Many of you are familiar with the North Carolina Digital Learning Plan. One of the plan's recommendations is to provide grant opportunities to support the development and dissemination of local innovative digital learning models. Ultimately, the goal is to have effective digital teaching and learning practices spread across North Carolina's public schools. This work is also about elevating the digital learning competencies, the digital learning standards, and other research-based practices, especially as they relate to personalized learning.
Okay, the slide that you are viewing right now is intended to give you a quick snapshot of the award information for planning grants. During this school year, there will also be one other grant type, which is an implementation grant. Public school units may choose to apply for each grant. To be clear, it is possible that a PSU may apply for one planning grant and one implementation grant. It is important that each application adheres to the purpose or intent of each RFP. At this time, we hope to fund up to 10 planning grants in the 2020-2021 school year. This amount allocated will be up to $50,000 for traditional public schools and up to $50,000 for charter, lab, and regional schools. I want to take a moment to emphasize the up to amounts listed for these grants. We ask that your proposed budget be clearly aligned with your project goals, and it should be based on the real needs within your PSU. For example, it may be that an applicant may realize that their actual needs are around $30,000, and it's strongly recommended that you carefully and very intentionally apply for the amount that maximizes the impact and leads to sustainability within your public school unit.
Okay, let's dive into more of the specifics for the planning grants. If you're following along in the RFP application, you'll see that these details are further explained on pages 4 and 5 of the RFP. As noted previously, all North Carolina school districts, charter schools, lab schools, and regional schools are eligible to apply for these grants. Public school units that were awarded a DLI grant previously are eligible to apply for. However, if a PSU has already received a DLI grant for the 2020-2021 school year, then they are not eligible. The RFP explains that DLI grant evaluators may consider an applicant's prior performance when making final award determinations. The planning grants are awarded for 1 year and are intended for those who are at the beginning stages of planning for a personalized learning initiative as defined by the 4 pillars: the learner profile, the individualized learning paths, competency-based progression, and flexible learning environments. The intent then is for PSUs to use this funding to develop a high-quality plan for pilot implementation of personalized learning in their district or their school. Grantees will be expected to complete the digital learning progress rubric and the landscape personalized learning survey. They will use data from these tools to complete a needs assessment. Then they will work to create a plan for pilot implementation of personalized learning. They will share materials, lessons, things that they've created through this grant via the Go Open NC Open Education Resources platform. And finally, they will be expected to participate in a May 2021 convening of all grantees to share their work and to learn from each other. Ultimately, each planning grantee will be working towards elevating or prioritizing the digital learning competencies for teachers or administrators, the digital learning competencies or standards for students, and personalized learning as defined by the 4 pillars.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a peek at the planning grant timeline. This may be helpful to you all. PSUs will submit their applications by January 6th at 5 p.m. and you'll email them to Julie and myself. Once the application window closes, a team of evaluators will follow the requirements outlined by the State Board of Education policy, which is also known as CNTR-001 for competitive grants. At this time, we will plan to make recommendations to the State Board for approval at the February board meeting. Award letters would then be sent out following the February board meeting with more specific details related to the planning grant. Once the budget has been certified and funds are available, we believe funds will be available late February 2021, funds will then be distributed to identified PSUs. During the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year, PSUs will produce the deliverables identified in their grant application. All grantees are expected to engage in the May 2021 convening.
Okay, we want to briefly explain the components of a planning grant application, but before we review these parts, we want to draw your attention to the rubric that evaluators will use for each application. If you're following along with the RFP, the rubric is posted on pages 13 and 14. You'll note that the scale ranges from excellent to unacceptable. As we review the components of the application, you should note that the rubric's left-hand column reflects these different components. We would highly suggest that as you prepare materials for the application, that you use the rubric to guide the work and even have others evaluate your application using this rubric.
All right, let's get started with the required application materials. The information for how to submit begins on page 8 of the RFP. Each application will have a cover page and a table of contents. The required cover page is included on the RFP materials as Appendix B, which can be found on page 15. The application should have one person who will serve as the primary contact. That person's name and contact information will be included on the cover page, and then will be the individual who will serve as the point of contact for the PSU. The primary contact person should be the individual who submits the final grant application via email to Julie and myself. The second page of your application will be a table of contents. Please be specific to identify each of the sections and update accurate page numbers appropriately throughout the application. The cover page and table of contents do not count towards the total page count.
Okay, the next section of the application is the objectives and intended outcomes table, which is Appendix C. Applicants will use the required template that is found on page 16 of the RFP to provide this information. This item is limited to 2 pages. This table must address the required deliverables identified in the purpose of the program. The project goal should be specific, measurable, and achievable. Through the statement of need, applicants will share how the goal was identified. Both the goal and the statement of need should reflect data and analysis specific to your PSU. The activity should be clearly described and detailed. Applicants should identify the time frame of the activities and clearly note the potential impact on students and/or educators. We would suggest that the activities be organized in chronological order, and applicants use this table as a timeline that deconstructs how the goal of the grant application will be met and how the deliverables will be accomplished. The focus should be, what are the stages and steps for developing this plan for future implementation? The deliverables should be explained in a prioritized order that shows a strong connection to the project's goal and activities. These deliverables are provided for applicants on page 5 of the RFP. There may be additional items that an applicant may identify as a deliverable, but you are not required to identify additional ones. You'll notice on the rubric that the first 2 components referred to in this table. This is the first piece of information that the evaluators review. This is the big picture that will explain the proposed work. We would suggest that applicants dedicate some time to preparing clear and organized a goal, your activities, and deliverables that mirror the intent of the RFP.
Dan, are you on the device right now?
The next section of,
like it's more of a device issue.
if you are watching the webinar, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself, that would be lovely. And Julie, I'm not sure if you can go through and see if you can mute.
I'm checking right now. Yes.
All the participants. Thank you. The next section of this application is the longest section, which can be up to 5 pages. You are encouraged to use tables, charts, graphics, or other means to share or develop the narrative in a concise fashion. The application should also identify a strong alignment to the digital learning competencies for teachers or administrators, digital learning standards for students, and personalized learning as defined by the 4 pillars. It is also important to identify the key personnel and the anticipated impact that the grant will have on educators and/or students. It's important that the narrative also explains how this work may be firmly embedded in the public school unit's strategic plan so that the work of this grant won't be a standalone effort.
Okay, the next section is local evaluation and procedures. This section is up to 2 pages. And again, you are encouraged to provide tables, charts, graphics, or other items for this description. Here you will describe clear methods and metrics for how the project will be successful. How will your PSU know that the work has been successful? What will be measured? What tools will be used to measure those things? And how will it be evaluated in an ongoing fashion? In this section, the application should explain strategies for how the community will be involved and how this work can be intentionally shared with others to spread the success of high quality digital teaching and learning.
All right, moving on to the fun part, proposed budget section. This section involves creating a budget proposal. So if you look at page 17 of the RFP, you'll find Appendix D. This template requires the applicants outline a clear, reasonable, and cost-effective budget for the grant. Again, there are up to amounts identified for the planning grant, but we could anticipate some PSUs may not need that entire amount to fully develop a high quality plan. So please note that state subsistence and transportation are not allowable expenses at this time due to the restrictions related to COVID-19. The budget should be itemized, showing alignment with the project goals and explanations that include clear and meaningful rationale. Again, so you see that state subsistence and transportation costs have a strike through, so those should not be included in your budget proposal at this time.
Okay, page 7 of the RFP explains the use of grant funds. There are specific allowances and percentages identified in this list and put into place to help PSUs work to meet the intent of the RFP. We tried to be thoughtful about the potential needs of what would be involved in developing a high-quality planning grant program. Make sure you allocate for expenses for participation in the May 2021 convening for your team members. Now, this year we're looking at that being virtual, so you really shouldn't have any expenses except some minor expenses for maybe supplies or things of that nature. We will let you know. As a reminder, state subsistence and transportation are not allowable expenses due to restrictions related to COVID. We would suggest that if you have specific questions related to the use of grant funds, or if you would like additional clarity, please submit the DLI question form. Lindsay will post that link again in the chat. The DLI question form is what we use so that we can actually update the FAQ page on our grant website. So it's very helpful if you use this form, so then your question may be the same question somebody else has, and that way we've already answered it and have it posted for you. Thank you, Lindsay. You're muted, Lindsay. Hang tight, babe.
Of course, yes. I am actually not able to see the chat because I'm sharing my screen. So you're going to have to post that link in there as well, if you don't mind.
Will. No problem.
So sorry about that. All right, moving on to page 18, which is the page of assurances. So this is Appendix E, and essentially this page is about ensuring that the PSU understands the commitment to this project, and also the materials submitted are accurate and complete. Also, this is ensuring that the grantees will adhere to the guidelines and activities required. So please note that both the primary contact for the PSU and the superintendent are required to sign this page.
All right, next let's review the expected deliverables. Each recipient will be expected to conduct a needs assessment through the Digital Learning Progress Rubric and the Landscape Survey for Personalized Learning. You must outline a well-developed implementation plan for personalized learning. Materials developed are expected to be shared again via the North Carolina Open Education Resources Platform, which is GoOpenNC, and recipients must reflect on the program's effectiveness and impact on students, and you will be expected to share at the May convening in the spring of 2021. This year, we're actually offering some grant planning resources to help you deliver and develop high-quality digital teaching and learning programs. It is essential that local leadership teams think strategically about how to collect and analyze data and utilize technical support resources. The resources we are sharing are intended to help assess data that is meaningful to align goals and outcomes in order to provide high-quality teaching and learning to teachers and students alike. These resources are not required. However, we highly recommend you use them as you complete your grant application. To receive access to these resources, you will sign up using the link provided, and we will share that with you. Once we receive your request, we will provide you with access. You will receive an email confirming access. I will post the link in the chat since she is not able to. If you are interested in using these resources, please sign up using the link in the chat.
We highly, highly encourage you to utilize this resource. Okay, so we're going to provide one more quick snapshot of the key dates for the year. So please take note of these if you haven't already done so. The RFP application deadline is on January 6th at 5 p.m. The final application needs to be a single PDF that is emailed to both Julie and myself, and you can find our emails listed on the current slide as well as the website and various other places. The subject line needs to read DLI Planning Grant and then your PSU's name. It is anticipated that the planning grant awardees will be announced in February of 2021. Funds will be hopefully distributed in late February of 2021. The May convening will be in May of 2021, and again, that will be virtual. And then you will have the grant end date, which will be June 30th, 2021, which means that you need to have all of your funds spent and your deliverables checked off by June 30th, 2021.
Okay, as Lindsay just mentioned, the deadline is January 6th at 5 p.m. Proposals should be emailed to both Lindsay and me. As Lindsay noted earlier, it is very important that you include in the subject line DLI planning grant application and then your PSU name. So it's easy for us to identify those and we don't get them lost within our emails. Lindsay and I will take a moment to review questions that have been posted and respond today as time allows. And I do have that up and we do have a couple of questions posted, so we will look at those in just a second. Again, we encourage you to submit questions using that DLI questions link, so please do so if you have questions. Even after today's webinar, we will be monitoring this. So for right now, we have one question that says, for professional development, if it is performed in-house but after hours, Saturday, for example, can stipends, and they put at a rate of $25 per hour, be provided in that budget line for PD? And the response is, if it is beyond their normal school day hours, yes, they can be paid a stipend out of this grant for the services that they're providing. So if they are a 10-month employee and they're providing services over the summer, you can include that too through June, because you know these funds have to be spent by June 30th. So keep that in mind as well. But yes, Saturday or evening events, they can be paid a stipend for those. And Lindsay, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, that can also include creating materials, providing professional development, doing online professional development outside of their normal work hours as well. That's a great question.
Okay, and the next question is, does the needs assessment need to be done prior to the grant application? And this applies to both grants that they're asking. We will discuss the implementation one once we get to that one, because that is a little bit different. But for planning, that is your needs assessment is a part of the planning. So you're going to want to look at what you're going to need, but to actually go through those processes, that is a part of the planning grant implementation. Lindsay, would you like to tap into that?
Yep. So just to further clarify, so you will complete that process after you are awarded, or if you are awarded a grant. That's a great question too. Do we have any other questions? Does anybody, if you have a question, you'd like to unmute yourself, you are more than welcome to do so.
Yes, that's fine as well. I don't see anything else right now, Lindsay. Let me refresh. No, they were the only two for now.
Well, fantastic. Again, if you have more questions, you are just going to post those on that DLI question short link that Julie shared in the chat. We really, really appreciate your time, and we're excited about the great work that is happening across the state of North Carolina. And we thank you for joining us today. Again, we hope you found this information helpful, and we greatly appreciate your time. We hope everybody has a lovely rest of your Friday and a really, really great weekend. We're looking forward to working with you.
Thank you. Thank y'all for joining us.
Oh, so we got a question, where will this recording be found? So it will be on the DLI website. So you can actually just Google North Carolina DLI grant, or I'll also post it in the chat. Perfect.
I got it.
It'll take us just a little bit of time to turn that video around, but we should get it up there probably by this afternoon.